All right, so this is probably going to be a little bit different than some of the other presentations. This is just going to go over all the functionality that's been introduced in AED over the last year. I'm going to go over all the releases and updates we put out over the last year, an overview of all the changes, and then dive into some details on some of those changes. And we'll talk a little bit about future direction, what we're looking at next, what may be going into the product. And then there should be some time at the end where I can do demos of some of the new functionality, and we can just have a general Q&A session on any questions you have about the AED functionality, just anything you want to ask about the product, want to share with the others. I can go and demo things or answer more detailed questions, technical questions about the product. So I think everyone's well aware of the AED product. It's used for telecom, gas, water, and electric. I'm sure most of you are here for, the few telecom folks or water folks, but, as Jim's been showing, the product's being used for some areas outside of, just power utilities. So first I'm going to talk about the releases and updates we did over the last year. So since the last PUG, which was, August last year, we're still putting out, roughly monthly updates. We've probably put out, fewer updates than in the past, perhaps, but still on a couple month schedule. They're all focused on compatibility. So we want to put out updates that, keep compatibility. You can get, issues addressed without fear of breaking your current configurations. That's always a important focus we have for the product. So the 8.4 release, which came out, I think earlier in 2023, as of last PUG, it was at the 8.4.8 update. We've put out a few updates since then. So the most recently released update was 8.14. And we released AUD 8.5 earlier this year. So the 8.5.0 release was put out, and we've put out 2 updates to that. Now, we are expecting some updates to come out, likely even this week. I just want to raise some attention to this. There's a couple important fixes to some new functionality in those updates. So, I showed you the currently released updates, but I just want to draw your attention to these upcoming updates. Please be aware of those. So, since last year's PUG, those updates have included a total of 50 new enhancements to the product and 82 resolved issues. So the numbers for 8.4 were 14 of those enhancements were backported to 8.4. So customers using 8.4 could benefit from those. And 34 fixes were backported. For 8.5, we implemented 36 enhancements for that release, including the updates, and resolved 48 issues with that on that release. And of all that, there's now it's a little subjective what you might consider a major new feature, but there's about, say, more than 5 or so major new features in those enhancements. So I'm going to go over a little bit of an overview of what that new functionality is in those updates. So we have support for MAP 2017 through 2024 currently. As we may talk, that's going to be changing. We're dropping some support for some of these earlier versions of MAP. I don't believe anybody here is still running on any of these earlier versions of MAP. And as you'll see later, some of the new developments, newer versions of AutoCAD, new versions of .NET are leading us to really need to look at our support of those older releases. Of course, all the configurations are always backward compatible. So you can be sure that, what we're putting out is going to be compatible with anything prior to the 8.5 release. In AUD, the improvements include implementations for work location. So we have a very interesting change for work location that can make it a lot easier to work with the work locations, display them. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail and how that can be used in conjunction with call-outs to provide a little bit simpler workflow. We've had changes that improve how some of the controls in the ribbon, how some of the filtering controls work, just usability improvements there. functionality related to schematic lines. So some things like you would have seen in the APS demonstration, more flexibility on how some of that schematic line work can be drawn or edited. Line rerouting functions, so a lot simpler ability to change routes of lines. So if you need to extend cables through a pole line or reroute underground, we have some functionality that's going to make that a little bit easier. Several different improvements to the material list, improvements to the AUD copy and AUD paste functionality, and related to that, improvements, new capabilities for the assembly function, as well as a new function for extracting data and updating between drawings. And then we have a lot of improvements to the 3D functionality and for much more detailed 3D design. So the admin toolkit also got a few updates. It has support for the latest changes to the AUD configuration and some improvements to how validation errors and logging information is put out. So as more and more folks are using the admin toolkit and the template builder to create their configurations, we're looking at making sure that you can get the information back when there's errors or things, issues in the template builder, to make that easier to troubleshoot issues when those come up. So of those enhancements for your design workflow, the work location changes, I think, are going to be a potential improvement to how you can use those and edit information. I think a lot of the time, some folks have custom forms sometimes for editing the work location. That may no longer be necessary in some cases. The way this will allow you to view the work locations in feature info. It also will avoid the need for some complicated solutions with dynamic blocks by being able to place callouts on work locations, which I'll go into a little bit more depth in a minute. So the simplified line rerouting, schematic improvements, the model filtering has been simplified a bit to make the presentation a little bit more clear about how the filtering works. AUD paste can now be done with connectivity established and kept. The copy-paste performance has been dramatically improved for very large sets of copy and pasting, which you might do to copy and paste, say, an entire drawing. And, of course, the new extract and boundary functionality can be used for scenarios where you're needing to move data between drawings. Now, you may not have a need for that functionality. That functionality is something that was very important to some scenarios for Substation, but I think that's an interesting topic to look at, especially as we talk about things like as-built workflows or phased workflows. May or may not. I think that's an important discussion that needs to happen at the PUG, and I'll be very interested in getting feedback, on this functionality and what folks think of that and how it might be used in some of your workflows. So for detailed design, we have improvements to how physical 3D connection ports allow very detailed physical layout. Now, this may not be something that anybody doing distribution design is really needing to work with yet, but it allows a very detailed 3D layout of connections. We have a system in place now for handling what we call visual fidelity, and this is to allow designs to have really complicated 3D content for detailed drawings, but then also have a more simplified content for larger drawings. Again, this may be something that may not come up in distribution unless you're getting really into a lot of 3D design layout. There are some really nice improvements to the dialog for managing surfaces. It also allows renaming of surfaces. Improvements to how the trench layouts are done. This could be very important for avoiding an untangling of conduits that can happen when running complicated duct banks. So if you're doing any kind of detailed duct bank layout, these changes might be very important to you. And of course, the ability to have sweeps displayed as separate objects. And it's really done right now in 3D, but you can use that from a 2D environment to allow you to select and highlight and identify sweeps. And that can be very useful in situations where it may be kind of hard to tell where those sweeps are located in the design. Finally, for implementation and support, we've got updates to the rules system, some really more powerful sorting functions that can be used in rules, allowing rules to be used to create more easily create sorted output for callouts and things. A whole new bulk processing tool. So this can be used to help clean up block directories. In some ways, it's a simplified version of what some other third-party tools might do to bulk process, but it has some special capabilities that are AUD specific as well. It can also help with converting content, 3D content, and automatically adding ports and things to prep content for 3D. Batch creation of the 3D part thumbnails. So if you have a lot of 3D parts and you need to generate thumbnails for them, previously you'd have to go edit each one individually. There's now capabilities to batch create those. The new options that were added to generate blocks for all features and add attribution. This allows use of the design in things like Navisworks and downstream Autodesk tools like the ACC tools. These now are extensible to include extra material data. So if you have additional material CU information that otherwise just shows up on the material list, that can be configured to show up on block attributes, allowing that to show up in the standard Autodesk downstream tools. And then there were some new commands included for helping recover industry model data in case of crashes and things like that. Makes it easier to go discover the last updated industry model if you need to recover that. So I'm now going to go into a little bit more of a deep dive into some of those functions. And feel free, if you have any questions about this, to just go ahead and ask while I'm on each one of these topics. I can answer any questions about these. So for work location, previously this was the one thing that would never display in the info tools, right? This led to the need of creating some custom forms. If you wanted to, add special attribution, special metadata and tracking on the work location. So with this change, there's an option to allow that to be shown in the info tools, right? So you can just more naturally edit that just like you would any other feature. There's an option called Show Work Location Info that enables this. And here you can see in the screen capture that, I've selected a couple work locations and they just show up in the info tool. And they also show all of their associated objects. So this also allows you to more easily navigate to all the objects that are associated to that work location by just selecting it and viewing it in feature info. So this also allows you to associate callouts to the work location. So I'm aware of several implementations where you may have a layout where you place almost two symbols for each work location. You may have a work location listing that has all of the material, but you also have another similar symbol that's almost, I think of it as almost like an asterisk. I don't know what you guys would refer to that as, but that you use separately in the design or in a different location. So we found that it's much, much simpler to treat that extra symbol as a call out on the work location itself. So with this change, you can place the work location with all of its listed out material information or whatever standard you're using for your work location call outs, but then create another call out on the call out that you can place, and that is also tracked back to the work location, to the associated features. So it avoids the need to use a dynamic block. It's a much more complicated solution to use a dynamic block with a lot of caveats. So this is a slightly different approach that can now be done and could help in those situations. Helps with then treating it as an annotated block, deal with annotative scaling issues that can occur. So it avoids the complexities of trying to combine a dynamic block with an annotated block and some of the caveats of that. So in some ways, a little bit simpler approach to that. So those additional symbols are associated back to that main callout. So this means that the work location also has been moved slightly in the configuration. The underlying data is all the same. Your underlying configuration is the same. It's just displayed in a different place. Instead of being displayed in the material list configuration, it's now displayed like all other feature classes in the industry model configuration. And it'll be found under the general section. That's also where you can configure the alternate callout for it. and the styles and other information that you would have configured in the material list section. That's now in the industry model config. I do want to note that we did have one issue come up with this functionality, and that these upcoming updates for the point 8.5.3 and 8.4.15 releases should address those. So if you're interested in using this functionality, please be aware you'll want to update to those update releases. So in the material system, we added an option for an exact match. So you may want to filter in the material list on a field that may have a lot of information in it, or you may have a field that has a very specific value that you need to search on. So we found in certain cases you may end up matching on a partial value and need an exact match. So there's now an option to filter on that exact match so that you don't get an incorrect match on your filter. There are also new options for alphanumeric ordering. These can now be applied to any field. So previously we had an alphanumeric sorting for the work location name itself, meaning you may have A1, A2, B1, B2 types of naming conventions. This can now be handled on any field. So you can configure any field in the material list to use an alphanumeric naming convention and sort on that. The summation mode now has options for whether or not to include sub-items. So if you want to show the totals of sub-items in the summation mode, those are now available. And there are some fixes that were blocking placement of tables from the summation mode in Paperspace. There's also some new rules that can help trigger validation and revalidation of the material list. So that can help with some workflows where the material list needs to be, revalidated and regenerated. So in the model filtering dialog, we changed what could be kind of unintuitive icons into more clear checkboxes. And from what I've gathered in feedback, this is a much more intuitive way of handling this. And some other improvements on the drop-down boxes. So you can now type in partial values into all fields. So instead of being limited to just a large pick list, you can also type in and get a partial search match with these configurable drop-downs. These may not seem like a big deal, but I'm sure if you're searching for one of these and need to do a search and not scroll through a huge list of items, so this might be very helpful. We also did some performance improvement on very large sets of models. So in cases where you may have thousands and thousands of models, and that was starting to slow down the model filtering dropdown, that's been addressed. So it will better work with large sets of models. So for using custom forms, previously there was no way to use chained values together. So this is a situation where you may have a custom form and setting one field controls the values that you need to see in the other fields. So with this functionality handled, it means that you can set up those kinds of forms and set up valid rules for those forms so that the fields update. So this helps create those kinds of forms where you want to have a chained set of pick lists. So for line rerouting, we have a function that's integrated into the connected tab of the info tool that allows you to reset the container features of the line. So this effectively allows you to reroute the line. Clicking that button will run a command sequence that will prompt you to select new route for the line, where you're clicking to deselect where you don't want the line to run and just select the line where you want it to run, and it will highlight showing you the valid or invalid path you've created. So it basically allows you to do complex rerouting without generating a invalid route along the way, right? So you're able to change this route, and it's going to give you feedback to make sure that you've got every link in that chain selected to a valid route and then complete it. So this will help with situations where you may have like a rerouting along a pole line or a complex reroute for underground. It allows, from what otherwise would have required pulling back the cable from the end of the line and then rerouting it around. So it's much easier to access, much easier to use to go do that kind of line rerouting. Even if you're just needing to extend the line, this can just be a much simpler workflow. So for schematic, there are 2 new commands, schematic to segment and schematic to duct. And what these allow you to do is it works very similarly to the other commands that allow you to just add to existing trenches, add to existing pole line segments. But in this case, you add to it and then immediately draw the schematic line out. So this just helps slightly with the workflow of getting those schematic lines digitized. In addition to that, the expand command has been enhanced for new options so that you can expand ducts and conductors together, the sets that are contained together. So in in many standards, you'll want the duct and conductor lines to display over each other and be offset together. So those new options will allow that kind of layout to be done more automatically. And some issues were fixed with copy-paste, so that now copy-paste, the AUD copy-paste commands now also supports the schematic geometry. So for underground, the highlighting of sweeps is performed by generating this 3D sweep option. Now this does require you to at least temporarily turn on the 3D display layer, but once you do that, you'll be able to select sweeps and see them highlighted. You'll see their 3D representation highlighted, and you can also select the 3D representation and it will select the corresponding sweep. So this allows you to see where that sweep is that you previously couldn't before, or select the sweep if you need to edit a particular sweep at a particular location. So in situations where you may have a long run and it has several sections of deflection and sweeps, this could be very useful to edit and make sure you're editing the sweep you're trying to get to. There are also other updates with sweeps so that the radius is kept. Now this is important for situations where maybe you want to keep the same radius but adjust other values on the sweep. I'm aware of there's a lot of workflow dilemmas with sweeps. This change should help a lot with the situations where you want to change the sweep model or control other aspects of the sweep while keeping other values set. Previously, if you change some aspect of the sweep, the system would fully regenerate it and you may lose some of the custom information you put on that sweep. So kind of hard to describe, but there's just certain workflows where you might have problems with sweep regeneration, and this should help with that. Okay, so the trench layout by geometry option is an option where previously the assignment of each duct into a vault was assigned in a sequential order according to the ports that are on that vault. So it would assign the first conduit to the first knockout and the second conduit to the second knockout. And that would be done irrespective of where those conduits sat in the duct bank layout. So with this new option, instead of using just a sequential ordering, the new option will look and it will find the closest knockout for those conduits in the duct bank layout. So this allows setup of duct bank layouts that match the vault knockouts and will just naturally assign to the correct knockout ports. So if you're doing that level of detailed underground modeling, this could really help with situations where you might otherwise get, duct assignments, flipped and reversed on each end, or other situations where you need to sort of untangle and reassign ports on the underground conduits. The routing functionality was also introduced, but also a capability with the traces in general that allow costing values to be introduced. So the costing values allow you to add to the trace some value that you want to be used for what constitutes a weight in that trace. That allows you to say, if you have multiple paths through that trace, you want to pick the best path through it. The weighting value will then be able to pick the lowest weighted path for that trace. So this could be used in situations where you want to route cables and you want to avoid overfilling other conduits, for example. And finally, there's a capability for segment ports. So this is probably something that really only, again, gets into detailed underground duct modeling, but means that you can assign a segment to a specific segment port, and then that will control the set of knockouts that are used for the conduits that are in that segment. So if you have complicated underground layouts where maybe you have multiple duct bank lines running into a vault, and you need to control, the conduits from this bank need to go into this set of knockouts, and the conduits from the other bank need to go a different set of knockouts, this would then provide that ability to control that a bit. Other improvements include the AUD pull head assign. Now, it's not exactly a trench and sweep underground functionality, but it is about assigning these detailed designs. This is more of an overhead reassignment. So I believe we already had this, but it could only be done in a 3D view, and now this can be done in a 2D view. So this allows reassignment of multi-phase overhead wires to pull heads. So in 3D design, there's a big improvement to the AUD elevation set dialog. That window now better displays multiple surfaces and allows you to change the names of those surfaces, rename them. The physical connection port functionality was added. Again, that's really just relevant to really detailed 3D layouts and a more stable 3D port snapping. So previously, it could be a little unstable, say, where the 3D port snap might happen. That's been made more robust. So the visual fidelity functionality, just want to just describe what this is. I'm not sure if many of you folks will really need to leverage this, but just to explain what it is a little bit. If you have your design and you have a model in that design, right? So these are your models that you're normally going to have set up. And usually this will may or may not have a 3D block. Say in distribution, you're usually going to have a 3D block for your pole heads. You may have 3D blocks defined for other types of equipment. Usually that's just going to have a single 3D block associated to that model. So in the visual fidelity system, this allows you to have multiple 3D model blocks for that same model, same logical model. And then those other 3D model files can be at much lower levels of detail. So, and that's handled by a suffix that's added to those files. The visual fidelity is then an attribute, a drawing property or an AUD variable that is assigned to the design, and that indicates the visual fidelity that's being used by the entire design. And then that controls which actual 3D block is used for that model. So this allows, a design to be laid out, all of the model information, all the feature information, your whole design is laid out. That information does not change. The visual fidelity can be changed, and the system will simply swap out and use a different set of 3D blocks if those different visual fidelities are available. If the visual fidelity isn't defined, it just uses the next highest available visual fidelity. Another new command is the AUD bulk process command. So in its simplest form, this can just be used to run an SCR script on a selected directory. So that's probably the simplest way to use this command. If you need to run a script on generally say a blocks directory and perform a bunch of common processing on it, this command can just be kind of handy for that. Define a script, select a directory, and it will run that. It'll run it through the AC Core Console, the AutoCAD command line interface, and it will process all the DWG files in that directory. It has some built-in options that you can configure. This could be useful for just pre-configuring something that does just a general purge and cleanup. It can clean up layers, it can remove unused layers and things like that. So there are a few options that might be a little difficult to set up in a script or that would be required you to write a complicated Lisp routine to do. So some of those options may be useful, but they're designed to just do general cleanup. So this is a tool that you might find useful just to do, to use as a utility or to use to process your blocks to clean them up. It does support 3D port generation. That's more for generating 3D blocks and also for converting over 3D DGN files. The part editor thumbnail regeneration then allows you to regenerate all the 3D thumbnails for your 3D blocks if you just need to bulk update those. They can generate all of them or just the ones that are missing. So the industry model recovery functionality consists of kind of two parts. One part is a system that attempts to detect when there was a failed save. So sometimes, during a crash, or sometimes if an issue occurs during the AutoCAD save process, AutoCAD may save the drawing, but it will fail to embed the industry model database. So your industry model database is actually always available in your temp directory. So what may happen is you will have a situation where the industry model file that you have in your temp directory does have your latest changes, but AutoCAD has not been able to save the latest industry model into the last saved or recovered DWG file. So this functionality attempts to detect when that situation has happened and will then indicate that when you next open the drawing. This allows you to then possibly recover that industry model database, similar to how the AutoCAD recovery command works. There are also options to always back up the file, create a backup of the industry model file. I think this came up because of situations in Citrix, situations where maybe your temp directory might be lost after an ended Citrix session or something. So some of these options allow the industry model database to always be cached to a directory. This just allows you to always be able to go back and find that file if necessary. Now, one thing I will say about this is that, this has come up in situations where you may not really care that it recovered it. The system only has so much ability to know what actually occurred during that failed save. And so this is a situation where you really need to have some idea of what happened with that drawing and whether or not you really need to recover it. It's probably best to detect to see if AUD data is missing, you will generally get another error after opening that drawing. And that's an indication that you probably do want to recover the file. So it really kind of depends what the situation was when the last successful save occurred, whether or not you want to recover that. So it's similar to knowing when to recover a file from AutoCAD. The AUD copy and paste commands have been improved with a by feature option. The by feature option, it allows you to copy and paste a single feature, but then paste it with all of its internal relationships. So an example of this would be, a pad mount transformer. If you copy the pad, it's going to keep the relationships to the transformer that you're copying. You can also copy and with a preview, with connectivity, right? I'm trying to think of the scenario here. So if you were copying, say, a transformer from pole to pole, this would allow you to paste that pole, but then establish the connectivity to the new pole as you're placing it. There are preview options now that we didn't have before. So as you're copy and pasting, you can control the preview, set limits on the preview so that it doesn't display a preview if the number of objects exceeds a certain limit, to avoid bogging the system down on large copy and paste operations. And in general, the performance has been improved, which really affects mostly large copy and paste operations. There are attribute assignment rules available now as well, so you can set up a copy paste, and that copy paste can clear attributes or reassign attributes that you're pasting. So if you have a scenario where maybe you want to copy a bunch of stuff, it's very similar to the replace command in a way. But if you have situations where you want to copy a lot of information, but then perform clearing of key fields, or auto generate new values, those rules can be set up for that. I do want to mention a caveat with this about the UDH GIS. We don't yet have a solution in copy paste that copy and paste the metadata that UDH GIS uses that tracks the GIS export. So if you copy and paste data that has been GIS exported, it is going to be pasted as if it were new, as if it were not from the GIS. So I just want to make that clear. Everybody aware of that. Very interested in getting feedback from everyone here. If you need to do that, if that's a scenario that comes up, definitely want to hear what that workflow is, what the use case is, as we look into how to support that in conjunction with the UDH GIS. But just to be clear, if you copy and paste, and this also goes for the new extract functionality that also copies between drawings, it does not yet support the UDH GIS extracted tracking information. So the copied data is not going to be considered to be the same stuff that you pulled out of your GIS. So the assembly functionality now has a command and a simpler workflow for simply inserting an assembly based on a selected drawing. So previously you had to go set up a 3D part for the assembly. Now you can just select a DWG and insert that as an assembly. So this might make this functionality a little bit easier to leverage if you want to play around with it. I can show an example of that in a moment. The AUD assembly edit command provides some additional operations for the assembly, including highlighting and selecting the associated features to the assembly and changing the associations and also updating the assembly. So in cases where you may have a standard assembly that's been inserted like that and you need to make changes to it, this allows you to then update designs that have already used that assembly to then reflect the latest definition from the source assembly DWG. So the extract functionality is a new piece of functionality we introduced. It's similar in some ways to the assembly functionality, but it's a more generalized capability that can be set up between any two drawings. So if you think of AUD assembly as it's more of a one-way street. The AUD assembly, the assembly is the definition, and inserting the assembly allows you to take that assembly drawing and insert all of it into your target drawing. And you can, of course, with an assembly, insert multiple instances of that assembly. The extract functionality is setting up a one-to-one correspondence between two drawings. And in order to do that, it operates through this new feature class that is now provided in the assembly data model, which is the AUD boundary feature. So this is the first core polygon feature class we've introduced. I know a lot of you guys have custom polygon feature classes and have already used this probably as a custom class. But the AUD boundary feature is a polygon that we're providing in the assembly data model. And it is not just a polygon feature, but it provides association behavior in some ways similar to a work location. So an AUD boundary is a polygon, but then also allows you to associate features to that polygon. Now, this does not necessarily mean those features have to be within the polygon. We have an editing function that allows you to establish that, and that can use the extent of the polygon to establish that. But it can be used to also include any arbitrary selected features to that boundary. And we've done that to allow for cases where you may have features that may not fully fall within the boundary, or that may be non-graphical, or that otherwise would not be picked up by being pulled in the extents of the polygon. This then allows you to define, not just a one-to-one correspondence between two drawings, but a subset. So the idea is you can have a larger drawing. You can define this boundary as a certain subset of that drawing and then extract just that subset into another DWG. So when that is done as part of the extract function, it uses another introduced feature class, which is a file link feature. So the file link feature sort of records that link that you're creating from that boundary to the other drawing. And this can then be used to link together different drawings using those boundaries and links. The file link tracks both a relative and absolute path, the absolute path to the source drawing, the relative path to the associated file. And the file link is then also associated to that boundary. So this creates a way to establish that subset and a link between it and the other drawing. just a note that the boundary, the file link, and the assembly functionality, that all requires the assembly data model extension. So that's an optional data model extension. You may not have that added to your data model. Just want to be clear, that's it does require that data model extension for that functionality. So the AUD extract functionality, it essentially copies features to an external drawing, and then allows updating of the features between there. As I mentioned, it uses the boundary and file links, and it achieves this by the boundary tracking GUID values for those features that are associated to it. So when you associate features to a boundary, they are assigned a GUID, and then that GUID is then used to track the identity of that feature across potentially multiple drawings. So as it's extracted, the system will be able to identify it will be able to identify features that are, say, added to a boundary. So if an extraction is created and new features are added and associated, those can be brought back into the other drawing. It can track when features have been deleted from the boundary. So this does provide a mechanism to do that kind of tracking and editing. So again, this is I'm very interested in anyone's thoughts on how they might want to leverage this, so we can be aware of those workflows, be aware of how you might want to put this into your workflow, make sure that we have all the functionality available to make that workflow successful. So in this example, you'll see that one of those boundaries is actually extracted to two different drawings. Another drawing has two of the boundaries extracted to it. Right, this is the kind of thing that's possible with these. So any other information you want to know about new functionality, I just do want to mention that the release notes that come out with each update will always include all of the individual updates. Everything I've shown you here today is just kind of a summary of what we have in those release notes. That will always have the latest descriptions and options and things that I've been going over here. Just that's an important resource, I think, the release notes, and those are available in the help under the What's New section. So if you weren't aware of the location of that, I just wanted to point that out. It's always a great place to look if you're interested in seeing about any of the new functionality. That's those notes will have detailed information about that. And of course, the white papers on the portal, those go into a lot of detail about that as well. And there's other resources on the portal as well. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about what's next and what might be coming up with AUD. And again, I want to be clear, I am going to make some forward-looking statements, but none of this can be considered set in stone. These are directions we're taking, although some of this is a work in progress. So the 8.4 and 8.5 releases will undoubtedly be getting fixes and maintenance, right? But we're also looking at a preview of a new function that will be coming in the next major release. We're wanting to put this out as a preview because we really think that it's going to be a highly useful function, and we want to get feedback on it as soon as possible. And we have some folks out there that really could be using this today, right? So we want to get this out. We expect to flesh out a lot of aspects of it in the next major release, but this 2D sheet functionality should be coming in an update, and will allow a streamlined workflow for creating 2D sheet views. So I can't really say much more about that, but that's something that's in progress. The next major release, we're looking at a major version change for the next major release, so AUD 9.0. Now, one of the reasons for this is that the 9.0 release will support AutoCAD 2025. And then in a second, I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. I don't know how much awareness there is around the changes in AutoCAD 2025. From a product functionality standpoint, it's perhaps not dramatic, but from a platform standpoint, the changes in the .NET version that's used has made for some major changes in that platform. We would hope to have these 2D sheet creation tools fleshed out in full for that release. For the admin toolkit, we just expect fixes and maintenance for that at this point. We will have support for 2025. I mean, we will have support for the 2025 release across all the SBS product suite. That's all in progress. So beyond that, based on feedback, based on what we hear, we may improve the extract functionality and copy paste. If it's needed to add support for the UDH and GIS, we'll be looking into that. A lot of that will depend on the feedback we get. There are some outstanding improvements we have for improving schematic. Related to the schematic improvements I already went over. Again, just waiting to get feedback on these, what's important along those lines. And simplify configuration. So we're always looking to try to improve things to make the configuration process as simple as possible. I know today, using the template builder is, not always simple and easy to use. We're really wanting to make the whole overall process of configuration, simple and more maintainable. And that really just means that, your feedback here at the PUG is an important part, of what we want to look at, right? So please feel free to talk to me, talk to other SBS folks here. Your feedback on this is really, that's one of the important things about the PUG. Is to get this kind of feedback and hear what kinds of workflows and solutions you guys need. So I'm going to talk for just a second about AutoCAD 2025, just so you're aware. There's just some technical changes that are coming with this. So AutoCAD 2025 is out, is available. We have internally things building on AutoCAD 2025. So just so you're aware, there's no fears there. We're in the process of, and we're also taking it upon ourselves to improve internal processes and things. So we're getting close. It's going well. We should have this soon, and this is going to be a good shift for this. But it's taken a little time to get this changed. And why is that? Because AutoCAD moved to .NET 8. So, there are version changes and then there are version changes. So AutoCAD shifted from .NET Framework. Well, before I get into that, just be aware that AutoCAD 2025, it provides a 3D fast shaded mode with paper space clipping. That may not be important to you, but that is a key for large performance in paper space. Includes some markup tools and AI capabilities. So those are some new capabilities that you may find relevant in AutoCAD 2025. But really the big change for us has been the .NET change. I mention this because this may also be an impact for your own internal organizations. If you guys have custom tools, I'm sure those custom tools will need to be updated for .NET 8 to run on AutoCAD 2025. This is probably something that I'm sure the IT folks are well aware of if you're moving to 2025. The good news about this is that these more modern frameworks are much more robust. They're going to get much better security updates from Microsoft, right? It's a good thing from the standpoint of moving to more modern frameworks. So that's a good thing, but it is a significant change. So AutoCAD 2017 uses the Framework 4.6 all the way up through AutoCAD 2024, which uses 4.8. Now, .NET Core is .NET Core 8.0 is what's used in AutoCAD. Now, you notice this change from Framework to Core, and that's the big change. The big change is from Framework to Core. That's where Microsoft made some major changes in how they package this. Now, there are a lot of things that are backward compatible, and I don't want to make this sound like it's a huge incompatibility change, but there's a significant difference in terms of the things that change between Framework and Core. And so the previous releases of AUD have always supported back to AutoCAD 2017. They actually built against the 4.6 .NET framework. And that framework was very backward compatible all the way through 4.8. And that's been a nice, stable environment for us to release the products on. And that's worked from AutoCAD 2017 to 2024. So for AUD 9.0, well, out of necessity, we're really needing to drop support from 2017 to 2020. And that's because those products build against .NET frameworks that are earlier than 4.8. Okay, that's it's not something that thrilled about, but this is something that's really just a necessity based on the versions of .NET that we can use. Now, versions of 2021 through 2024 all use the 4.8 version, and Microsoft has that in long-term support, and so that is looking to remain supported by Microsoft for a while now. So these all look nice and stable. We can support those versions back from 2021, 2024, and of course 2025 is built on .NET Core 8.0, and the new versions will support that. So AutoCAD 2026 and on, after .NET 8, .NET 9, these are all possibilities. It looks the best we can tell that so far the compatibility, it's not too bad. I don't suspect that the changes that we're seeing in this shift from framework to core will not be repeating themselves. But no one can predict the future. Just raising awareness for this. It could be that the next version of AutoCAD will remain on 8. It could remain on, it could move to 9. The compatibility may be such that it's really a non-issue, just like it was with framework. So I just want to raise awareness about this. This is kind of just the state of the art, what's going on with AutoCAD and the core .NET framework it's built on. Again, this will also affect, if you have custom applications, you have IT folks who are building applications to run on anything that runs in AutoCAD will need to run on compatible version of this .NET framework. I know it's a very technical slide about that, but is there any questions about that?
Just going back to the visual fidelity 3D blocks, I was going to ask a question, then I thought I'd wait till now. The file size issue, it's something that we've encountered with the file size of the 3D blocks and being really aware of how big they are. By the sounds of it, using that visual fidelity process could help with that. Using those lower fidelity drawings or 3D blocks for the most part, unless you absolutely need them. I was just curious if you'd considered or having like an auto purge, or having considered how the drawing is impacted if it's shifted back and forth between high fidelity, low fidelity. Is it something that you'd considered having an auto purge?
It actually does the equivalent of an auto purge.
It does.
So when you switch the visual fidelity, it will purge out the other visual fidelity block.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's designed to do exactly that, because it's, not only for performance, but to reduce the file size.
Hi, I'm Marvi from SCE. Can you show us some demos? I'm interested in the AUD bulk process and AUD recover, but also the one with the work location, the associate callout.
Oh, I'm not sure I have anything set up to show the bulk process.
Okay.
I could run the command. It's not real exciting. It's just it just prompts you to select a script file and a directory. There's just not much to demo, but I can show you some stuff for the work location.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got a really simple example here. It's just some polls. I've created 2 work locations. So if I select this one, you can see it's associated to this poll head. It's generating the material information for those associated objects. I've got another one over here for the other poll. So let's see here. I'll create another one. Click Set Work Location, and I'm going to select this poll and the guy. Create a new one. Maybe I can place these all. I don't know. I'm seeing some examples of this where you may have all the stuff lined up side. Actually, a show of hands is that you lay out your work locations like this. Does anybody here will lay out their work locations in a single area? I'm going to insert call out, as I would insert a call out for any other feature. Well, in this case, I'm going to select the work location. I'm going to choose the work location itself, and you can see I get the standard call outs here. I'm going to choose this call out, which is really just the work location style renamed over to be a call out, the simple work location style. And then I'll go place this, say over near where the information is. You see if I select the work location, it selects. If I select the call out, just like how a call out will normally select the associated features, you get it will select the associated work location. And you can see here that it's also displaying in feature info all of the features that were associated with the work location. So that's, possibly a very useful capability here just to be able to easily get to those, right? I think previously you'd have to run a special highlight command. It's a little bit simpler. I can just go select these now. If I want to select everything that's associated with the work location, I can just select those in feature info. So possibly a much simpler way of interacting with the work location that way. The other aspect would be if you created custom attributes. So you can add custom attributes and then now edit those attributes for the work location, but without having to have a custom form to do it.
So for the, Brent Beck, I'm with Atwell. So on these, can you do enhanced callouts like you would with other things, where if you did want to put all of these work locations in a row like this, could you do an enhanced callout where it'll automatically kind of place that callout in the vicinity of, the items that are associated with those work locations, where it'll just kind of auto-populate all of them there for you, or is that an option in the future if not?
Offhand, I'm not sure if the automated callouts can position themselves like that. They would probably get positioned relative to the work location. But it may be, in this example, I've created the work location using this symbol with all the details, but then place the call out with this simpler symbol. But you could always set it up the reverse, right? You could set up this one to be the work location and then have the call out have the details. And in that case, the usual routines for automatically generating work locations might allow that. But I think if you wanted to create this and generate the call out, but according to the associated features, I'm not sure if that's possible.
Thank you, Dave.